Kansas has one of the worst reputations of any state in the country. It's a flyover state, boring, flat, nothing there. And yet, people are moving here in 2026 and staying. So what is it? Is Kansas actually worth it, or is the reputation right? Here's the honest answer. Let's get into it right now. So let's address it directly. The flyover reputation exists because Kansas doesn't have a coastline, a mountain range, or a major metro that dominates national conversations. If you're flying over it at 35,000 feet, it looks a lot like flat land and nothing else. But here's the thing. The flyover reputation tells you what Kansas doesn't have. It says almost nothing about what Kansas does have. And for a specific type of person, what Kansas offers is exactly what they've been looking for. This video isn't about whether Kansas is impressive by the standards of people who've never been here. It's about whether Kansas gives you what you actually need. Those are two completely different questions. Let's start with something nobody talks about when they talk about Kansas: the geographic advantage that makes this state unique. Kansas sits at the geographic center of the continental United States. That sounds like a geography class fact until you realize what it actually means in practice. From Wichita, Oklahoma City is 2.5 hours south. Kansas City, 3 hours northeast. Dallas, 5.5 hours if my wife's driving, a little bit longer than that. Denver, 7.5 hours, a little bit longer if I'm driving. St. Louis, 6 hours. If you have family spread across the country, and most relocators do, you're equally accessible to almost everywhere. You're not isolated at the end of the geography. You're in the middle of it. And then there's Kansas City, major metro entertainment scene. Property taxes in Kansas are moderate, not the lowest in the country, but significantly below what most people pay in the coastal or the Sun Belt markets that people are leaving. Utility costs are manageable. Insurance rates, particularly auto, run lower than most states people are coming from. Kansas eliminated the state sales tax on groceries back in 2025. That's a real ongoing reduction in monthly household cost. That doesn't get factored into most cost of living comparisons. And if you're military or planning a transition, Kansas fully exempts military retirement pay from state income tax. I covered this in full detail in the PCS to McConnell Air Force video. Link's going to be down below in the description. But for anyone who's been counting on that income in retirement, Kansas doesn't touch it. The full financial picture here isn't just about what your housing cost is. It's about what your entire life cost. And on that measure, Kansas consistently delivers. The financial case is solid. Here's what Kansas actually has, because this is where the flyover reputation really misses the mark. College sports in Kansas are not a small thing. The Kansas Jayhawk basketball program is one of the most storied in college basketball history. Kansas State Wildcats football and basketball are deeply woven into the fabric of this state. If you care about college sports, and a lot of people do, Kansas delivers at an elite level in a way that doesn't cost a professional sports team franchise ticket price to experience. The agricultural economy creates something you don't get in a tech-driven or finance-driven market. You get stability. Kansas doesn't boom and bust with the NASDAQ. The agricultural backbone creates consistent, predictable economic conditions that translate into stable communities, stable housing markets, and stable employment. If you've been living in a market where everything feels so cynical and uncertain, that the stability is kind of underrated until you experience it firsthand. And the people, this is subjective, but it's consistent. People who move to Kansas say the same thing. It feels like a place where people genuinely know their neighbors. They put down roots and mean it when they ask, "How are you doing?" If you're coming from a transient metro where people are somewhere between just arrived and just about ready to leave, this is a real and noticeable difference. That's what Kansas has. Here's what it doesn't, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Weather in Kansas is the full picture. We're not talking just tornadoes. Spring tornado season is real, and I cover it it in full in a separate video. Like usual, link will be down below. But beyond that, summers are generally hot. Winters bring in ice storms, freezing rain, snow that can shut things down for days potentially. And the wind, constant year-round wind, is either something you adapt to or something that grinds on you. Know which one you are before you commit. Kansas overall is a car dependent state, full stop. Not just Wichita, the entire state. Yes, public transportation exists here in a limited capacity. It is getting better, but a vehicle isn't optional for most people here, regardless of where you land. The entertainment ceiling is real at the state level. Major concerts, world-class restaurants, professional sports in Wichita, limited. Kansas City closes that gap for a lot of people, but it requires driving, not walking. If proximity to a dense, constant entertainment scene is generally not negotiable for you, Kansas isn't going to fix that outside of Kansas City. And politically, Kansas is a red state. I'm not here to characterize that either way, but if political environment is a significant factor in where you want to live and raise a family, it's worth knowing before you move rather than after. So trade-offs covered, honestly. Here's the bottom line, and it comes down to one question. The question that actually determines whether or not Kansas is worth it for you. Are the things Kansas gives you, being centrally located, financial stability, space, community, a cost of living that can actually work in your favor, and access to Kansas City should you need a major metro experience, worth more to you than the things it doesn't give you? Because Kansas doesn't give you mountains or an ocean or a incredibly dense entertainment scene. It's improving, but it's not quite your major metro, or perhaps a politically mixed major metro culture. It doesn't pretend to be. The flyover state reputation exists because people flying over it weren't looking for what Kansas actually offers. For the right person, someone done paying coastal or Sunbelt prices for an increasingly compressed, expensive, transient lifestyle, Kansas in 2026 is one of the most honest relocation decisions available. The stability is real. The affordability is real. The community is real. For the wrong person, the weather, the entertainment ceiling will wear them down regardless of how good the numbers look. Only you can answer which one that is. But if you want to understand what Wichita specifically looks like before you make that call, the deep dive content and the research tools are all down below in the description. Want to see what's actually happening in Wichita right now? The growth, the development, everything changing in 2026? That video is right here. YouTube is suggesting this video right here. Or if you want to understand exactly what your specific budget gets you in this market, let's have that conversation directly. Call, text, email, mornings, afternoon, early evenings, weekends. I've got your back with relocation to Wichita and the surrounding area. Everything else is in the description. No sign up required. Bring the questions. Always there as usual. We'll catch you all back here in the next one. Take care.